The final 3 days prior to heading out to the finals were just a touch-up period for most, a time to make sure all the tricks they had taken a month to learn were all set and ready for tournament time. It wasn't necessarily wise to go full blast so close to the event and risk injury or coming in exhausted. Most adhered to this way of thinking, with the exception of a few, one Rock Lee for example. Still, some competitors found it necessary to do so in order to master their more advanced techniques, right down to the last day before leaving. Uchiha Clan Compound. Breathing heavily, Sasuke pulled his left arm out of a wooden target, not caring much of the singe marks and the splinters in his hand still. Around the yard he had been training in, there were multiple targets of all sorts, human-shaped dummies, rocks, and more wooden ones, all of them with similar holes punched in them, presumably by Sasuke's left arm. He held said arm, keeping himself from wincing at the feeling of pins and needles stabbing every portion of the limb mercilessly. So, 2 shots a day is my limit. That's gonna have to do during the exams, he said to himself as he stood up to begin walking to his home. Kakashi told me to not even use it unless Sakura or Choji were in serious danger. Just stick to the other moves I've learned. I've also got another advantage too. Sasuke thought as his eyes flashed the Sharingan for a moment. There are 3 matches for our first round matchup. If anyone uses hand seals, I've got a chance to maybe pick up a new move to surprise the competition with. With the feeling that his extra training would most certainly come in handy, Sasuke decided to head home for the night. All of the Leaf competitors were supposed to leave early the next morning in order to make it in time to get the Genin one more day of sufficient rest prior to the fights. However, he did not see the figure that had been watching him, hiding its presence and taking notice of Sasuke's new skill. In the low light of the setting sun, a small reflection came off the person's glasses as he tilted them up on his face. I know one person in particular that's going to be very interested in your development. I'm sure you'll impress, Sasuke. Elsewhere in the Leaf, Naruto had a look of satisfaction on his face as he sat against the trunk of a tree and sank his machete blade first into the ground. He had been using the trees as test dummies for his combat techniques, a last run through of his own personal skills before tomorrow came. He felt he had a good little list of tricks for his opponents to get a piece of, especially the delightful little juice that Asuma had taught him for his machete. It sure wasn't the flying swallow, but it was damnably versatile, and it covered up a gap in Naruto's repertoire, so to speak. He had to chuckle to himself in a pleased manner as he picked his weapon of choice back up off the ground and looked at it, a grin forming widely on his face. Thanks for the help, Asuma-sensei. He then dropped his grin and a small smile took his place. And you too, Pervy-sensei, I guess. Like it or not, perhaps using the Nine Tails chakra wasn't a bad thing. He was still in control, and he was still himself. If it was a situation where he had to use it or die, then it was better that he had access to it than not. Getting pushed to that extent shouldn't occur that often, he thought. How many times would he face off with someone tough enough to push him like Jiraiya did, or someone able to upset him like Haku did and making him think that she had killed his team? Never again if he had anything to say about it. Shikamaru and Ino were ready for certain in Naruto's opinion. They had worked hard, all of them, and his teammates had picked up their share of nasty surprises just in case. There wasn't really much more to do at this point. He was getting rather excited at the thought of it, and he still had a few days of traveling ahead of him before he could even think about fight time. He had way too much pent-up energy just to sit still and do nothing. He just had to get up and run, even if it was just on the way home. It wasn't anything to do but train though. Shikamaru and Ino were at a party with Choji, thrown by their clans to celebrate the fact that they were in the finals. Something that apparently was going on with all the clans in the Leaf that had representatives in the finals. It was strictly an Ino Shikacho affair, but that was alright with Naruto. Their families were proud, and he wasn't really family, so how could he be invited? Even if he had been, it would have been because they had pitied him, and he certainly didn't want that. He'd have to wait for the commencement festival that was apparently going to happen the night before and after the tournament if he wanted to spend some time with his team. For now, he'd just chill out by himself at home and get ready for the road in the morning. Asuma was probably with Kurenai again, and the young blonde knew enough to recognize that it was certainly not his place to step in there. Damn, even 2 months of hanging out with Jiraiya managed to stick something other than ways to fight in his brain. And as he arrived at his apartment, he found the man that he had just been thinking about was standing outside of it. What, you didn't feel like breaking in and waiting for me this time? Naruto asked dryly. Oh, so you're saying you didn't booby-trap the doors and windows after the last time? Jiraiya replied much in the same manner with a small smile on his face. Naruto just stared at him before moving past and unlocking the door. You could take it. The only thing that's trapped with explosives is the front door. Opening said front door, Naruto walked inside and gestured towards Jiraiya, who still stood patiently outside. Are you coming in or not? Just waiting for the invitation, kid. Jiraiya said as he walked inside. I think I've taken enough liberties with you recently. It'd be kinda messed up to break into your house after what I had to do last time we spoke. He then let out a hard exhale and a cough as Naruto buried a fist in his stomach. Okay, good hit. Jiraiya wheezed out as Naruto pulled his fist away. There, I feel better about it now, Naruto said, flexing his fist out after punching Jiraiya. Damn, that old pervert was sturdy. That was like punching a life-size brick of semi-hardened clay. Maybe if I get pissed later, I can hit you again. It's a one-day offer, Jiraiya said with a deadpan stare before Naruto hit him again in the stomach. Brat. Another punch. Damn it. Ah! Oh, and the offer is off the table. Kami. That's like getting hit with a sledgehammer. A smug grin came over Naruto's face at that comparison. I got banned from trying to use the taijutsu post at the academy for practice because I finally broke one of them. Then Iruka yelled at him and chased him around the school for 2 hours. Luckily, he didn't have to pay for it. After rubbing his stomach a few more times, Jiraiya gave a laugh. Don't get cocky, brat. You're not the strongest person that's ever hit me. Not even close. You're just good for your age. You could beat me like that all day and I'd be fine. He abruptly held up his hands defensively when he saw Naruto lift his fist again. Damn it, don't do it, I come in peace. Seeing Jiraiya again made Naruto remember that while he might have had a pretty miserable experience with the man, he did seem legitimately remorseful for whatever action he did to coax the Nine-Tails chakra out of him, and he did have a great time working Jiraiya until then. He had definitely been picking things up from the man, and the entire ride had admittedly been a blast right until the final day. Damn, I'm a total pushover, Naruto thought to himself with a sigh. He didn't want to hate Jiraiya. He'd gotten tired of hate a long time ago, actually. When he was younger, he wanted to hate the villagers that treated him like he didn't matter. He wanted to hate his position in life before becoming a beginning. He wanted to hate how much he sucked at proving he could get himself out of the academy with his 3 failures. He used to want to hate everything, but he just got sick of it. I know you come in peace, Pervy-sensei, Naruto said as he plopped down bonelessly in the first chair his body could reach. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow at Naruto's reaction and shut the door behind him so that passersby couldn't hear Naruto gripe. Why can't I ever just be mad at the people that do things to me? That would make things so much easier. Hell, I don't even want you to bribe me or anything to get me to forgive you. Jiraiya crossed his arms over his chest and stared at Naruto curiously. Are you sure? Because I was about to teach you a... Yeah, I'm sure, Naruto said, not really leaving any room for argument. Weird. Most kids would be doing backflips at the prospect of learning a new jutsu. Actually, keep that one on the hold for a bit. If I live through the exams, we'll see. There, that was more like it. It better be badass. Jiraiya scoffed and turned his head away from Naruto. Everything I do is badass. He then turned serious and leaned against the front door. So, think you're ready? At that line of questioning, Naruto frowned deeply in thought. Flashback. 1 day ago. Team 10 training ground. Shikamaru picked at the bark that had just been freshly stripped from a tree, though not by a traditionally manual manner, as one would have normally seen, especially since the tree also had some small gashes in it. Okay, Naruto, I think you've got it. Naruto absently spun his machete around on the chain at the end of it with a huge grin on his face. Yeah, I know, I'm awesome. Not bad, huh? He then found that he had to stop spinning the weapon around for safety as Ino threw herself over his back, wrapping her arms around his neck. Ino, I'm swinging a machete. I'm so proud of my Goldie, Ino said brightly, rubbing her cheek against Naruto's whisker-marked one, eliciting a growl from her embarrassed gaining teammate. Such a quick study. A smirk came upon Shikamaru's face as Naruto looked over at him with pleading eyes to get Ino off him somehow. Well, having 50 to 100 clones working with the jutsu and giving the results back to you kinda does that for you. It made him wish he knew how to use shadow clones like Naruto did. Hell, it had shadow in the name of the jutsu to boot. Oh well, Naruto had to have his own special moves as well. And if Shikamaru could make clones like Naruto, they'd probably just be as lazy as he was. And the fact that you have a few new tricks opens up a few doors for us come fight time. Should make things easier. At least I hope so. Ino then stopped rubbing her cheek against Naruto's to give Shikamaru a deadpan stare. Nothing we ever do is easy. And I'm starting to think it's because you keep wishing out loud for things to be easy. You're jinxing us, Shikamaru. With as much as you hope nothing ever goes wrong, I'm surprised we haven't been jumped by a gang of S-rank missing ninja by now. Ino then went deathly silent before palming her own face and dragging it downward. Damn it, I just did it, didn't I? Uzumaki-kun, Yamanaka-san, Shikamaru-kun. Everyone's attention turned towards the edge of the field, where Shio was running towards them before coming to a stop in front of them with her hands on her knees, breathing heavily. All of Team 10 had the same thought, seeing this how it was a weekday and Shio had to work. Did she just run away here from the Leaf Archive Library at the top of the Hokage Monument? It was quite obvious that she had, and that she was somewhat out of shape due to not being an active duty genin, so they gave her time to catch her breath before asking why she was there. Shio-chan? Naruto asked, all of Team 10 fighting the urge to facepalm when Shio sank to her knees and rolled over to her back to lay down for a minute. What are you doing here? Don't you have to work today? Yes, Shio said, still breathing rather heavily and laying on her back. But I have information, she said, abruptly sitting up and adjusting her glasses on her face in an attempt to look as presentable as possible. This guard person that you said can control sand, his technique sounds identical to reports from files on past encounters that Leaf forces had during the Second Shinobi World War. I was taking some time to go through some of the records I had access to. Ino took the break as an opportunity to sit down on the ground and listen up. Okay, so do ours. Me and Shikamaru's clan techniques are O2. He controls sand. Ooh. She finished while feigning fear gestures at the idea of sand. Sand that he uses to crush things and suffocate people. Naruto said matter-of-factly, getting Ino to stop mocking sand in a hurry. That's pretty important to remember, Ino-chan. Shikamaru knew that Naruto had apprehensive thoughts about the sand getting Gaara, and he trusted Naruto's judgment on dangerous enemies. There was always the possibility that they would somehow face off down the line, so knowledge would be power in this instance. So if his sand control's been seen by others who lived to report about it, then there must be a way to beat it,
right?
Shio perked up once she heard Shikamaru speaking to her and blushed nervously as she responded.
Well, there's something about the sand that you need to know first before you start looking for ways to beat it.
Her nervousness dropped and she looked over at Naruto with a frown, though it was only for a split second.
Well, the man recording this book as having control of sand was a Jinchuriki gifted with the natural ability to do such.
She finished quietly. Naruto's jaw dropped at the thought of Gaara being a Jinchuriki, since that was clearly what Shio had been implying. On the other hand, Shikamaru and Ino didn't have the faintest idea what a Jinchuriki was, nor were they looking in Naruto's face. Otherwise, they would have known flat out that it was a big deal.
So,
Ino finally said after waiting for a minute to let Shio continue.
What's a Jinchuriki and why is it worth bringing up? I mean, you ran all the way here and you nearly killed yourself.
Shio let out a sigh, inwardly proud of the look on Naruto's face.
Uzumaki-kun knows what a Jinchuriki is without someone telling him. He must really be taking that learning thing to heart.
Of course, she also didn't know that Naruto was aware of his own status as a Jinchuriki, but that was something else altogether.
Jinchuriki, power of human sacrifice. Humans with the powerful monsters known as Biju sealed inside of them. You do know what those are, don't you?
Ino just gave her a blank stare before blinking her blue eyes.
Refresh my memory?
Shio returned her stare with a deadpan look.
The nine-tailed fox that attacked 12 years ago. That was one of them.
Ino's eyes then did a great impersonation of the way Naruto's had looked moments before that revelation.
So, you're saying this Gaara kid has a demon stuck inside of him, like the nine-tailed fox? How the hell will people even do that?
She then turned towards Naruto.
Can you do that? Sealing jutsu is really powerful and dangerous,
Naruto said, speaking up for the first time since the topic came up. If anyone out of the lot of them could even come close to calling themselves an expert on the matter, it was him for more than one reason.
It can do all kinds of things. And no, I can't. I don't think I want to learn either.
He replied honestly, squinting his eyes and crossing his arms with conviction. He didn't want the power to make someone like him. His life was bad enough, just because of what was stuck inside of him. He would be sick to his stomach if he ever had to do that to someone else. Shiho held up one finger in lecturing mode.
Ichibi no Shukaku, aka One-Tailed Shukaku, or Shukaku the Sand Spirit. That's the best guess as to what's sealed inside of Gaara, since the Shukaku is traditionally acknowledged as the Hidden Sands. He's supposed to be their secret weapon, with powerful abilities and a touch of insanity.
A touch? Naruto thought with a raised eyebrow. Clearly either the Jinchuriki and the records had enough wits about him to fake being sane in front of the man that had logged it in, or Gaara was just plain homicidal for the sake of being homicidal.
Then how do we fight him? He's supposed to have all that power. What's he doing in the exams?
Shikamaru asked rhetorically, not really expecting an answer. However, he received one from his teammate.
He's a human being just like anyone else,
Naruto said tersely.
He's just got more power than a normal person would.
Naruto himself was a Jinchuriki, and he wasn't all powerful. He had been shown by Jiraiya that having the 9 tails in him didn't make him unbeatable, and that meant that Gaara was also not unbeatable.
Treat like another opponent that we can beat. At least we know his jutsu this time. That's more than he's got on us. All he knows about me is that I can make clones. And that's not enough to find a way to beat me. It's not enough to beat us. Believe it!
Shikamaru gave Naruto a long, hard look and saw something in his friend's eyes. At the end of the last stage of the exams, Naruto seemed petrified at the prospect of fighting Gaara. What had changed over the last month to put that much swagger back in his step? Still, it was either solve the problem or get squashed. And besides, what were the chances of both teams meeting in the final tournament battle anyway? But with odds like that, it was clearly more than certain that they would in fact be meeting Gaara and his team in the finals, which meant that he needed to get cracking and come up with a solution.
I told you I'd find a way to help in case we had to fight that guy Naruto. I'm not going back on my word, as troublesome as that may be.
Shio smiled at the lazy guinea.
Shikamaru-kun is so cool!
End of flashback. Flashes of his clones and the complete decimation by Gaara flew through his head. But then, Naruto thought of Ino and Shikamaru, and what he knew they had been doing all month to get ready. In addition to that, Shikamaru had promised him that he would find a solution that would beat Gaara's sand defense. He believed in his team. He believed in himself.
We're ready, Pervy-sensei. For sure.
Besides, he still had to get out of the first round before he could rightly begin worrying about any of that. Even though he didn't know anything about Team 10's first round opponents, he didn't want to be accused of overlooking them or wind up beaten. Oh, then you'll definitely win for sure, Jiraiya said with a smirk on his face. Naruto thought he was being facetious at first, but the man quickly squashed that thought with his next words. Look here, kid. You've got the heart and soul. All you needed was the guts to go forward.
What about talent?
Meh, talent's overrated, Jiraiya said, waving him off. Naruto almost fell out of his chair at the very blunt, near backhanded statement.
Does that mean that I don't need talent to win this? Or that I don't have any talent in the first place? Wait, who am I kidding? Both those options suck!
Jiraiya ignored the look on Naruto's face and continued. Listen, you're going to bleed. You're probably going to take a beating. And by the end of this tournament, you're going to wish with all your heart that you never have to do anything like it again. But you'll gut that out and do it anyway. If you really think you deserve it, if you believe that winning the whole thing is your mission, then you'll endure all that to do so. Take the things that you want, and don't let anyone say you can't or let them stop you without doing everything you can, and then a little bit more after that, to get there. He then opened the front door and stepped outside, finishing his point on a lighter note. No student of mine is going to get beaten in the first round either. You're representing me here, so make them all see how good you are. That will make them all see how amazing Lord Jiraiya is for sure. The student reflects the skills of the teacher. As Jiraiya's loud, guffawing laughter rang out while he walked away from Naruto's apartment, Naruto himself was left with a strange, peaceful feeling in his stomach. No jitters, no actual doubts, none of that. He honestly felt ready with not a thought in his mind to the contrary.
Pervy Sensei, if your perv books didn't make you so much money, I'd see me to start touring for inspirational speeches.
2 days later, the Land of Iron. Even in the snowy environment of the samurai-dwelling country, it was clear that a festival was carrying on. The streets of the host village were filled with vendors of all sorts from countries all over the world. Each nation invited to view the final rounds of the exam had some form of representation, either through stands set up for cuisine, peddling wares, or buying and selling commodities that would be far harder to obtain in their countries normally. It was like a massive, grandiose international swap meet for merchants with the means to travel freely to the normally locked down country. They could either sell their own in-demand goods to foreigners for high prices that they could get at home, or get their hands on rare things that they could sell back to their own villages for a huge profit. Fortunately, the samurai of the Land of Iron were out in full force in their capital to ensure nothing got started by any of the visitors, and no fighting among the shinobi that were only there to view the tournament that was the centerpiece of the whole thing. Otherwise, stiff penalties would be paid in full, monetarily or physically. Still, any underlying tension between the major villages there to visit seemed to be set on the back burner. Anything that any of the more bitter spectator shinobi felt had to be settled up between them and the other villages was to be done vicariously through the beginning of the tournament. That was the unwritten understanding of the Chunin exams. It was more or less anything goes as long as it was in the structure of the competition.
I've already gotten an audience with another team that was supposed to fight one of the Leaf teams, so now I've come to you all,
Gato said with a nasty grin on his face as he sat in a rather upscale looking restaurant, his table surrounded by fully armed guards. He had no desire to associate with the rabble outside the festival. He had business to attend to.
You see, a pair of these bratty Leaf teams that are littering the event managed to turn a rather lucrative business arrangement of mine sour a few months back, and I figured what better time to collect scalps than now when I can get away with it.
He chuckled darkly towards his company.
So here's the deal. You're to fight some no-name brat named Uzumaki's team in the first round.
Yes, Naruto was a no-name as far as Gato was concerned, despite the fact that there was a newly built mammoth bridge with his name slapped right on top of it, sitting between the mainland and the Land of Waves. And you want us to bury these runts, right? Sitting across from the shipping magnate was the Hidden Stone team. The shaved head, de facto leader of the squad, Hazashi, smirked as he asked Gato his question. And you'll pay us for each one we kill, right?
1 million for each of you for every one of them you take down,
Gato said informatively.
Just so you have the option of taking out 1 or 2 of them and make it seem like an accident. A little plausible deniability, even in something like this, is never a bad thing. Besides, I award ambition, in case you decide to get all 3 of them. Just don't tell your Jonin or any of your village reps. I don't think they'd be too ecstatic to hear you're more or less freelancing.
Hasashi looked at his 2 teammates and got unanimous nods from both of them. As the full Hawk sporting member of the team, Masaru spoke up. We're in. How many times is a group of Ginny never gonna get a chance to get rich? Third teammate, Jun, nodded in agreement with a rather hard look on his face. Besides, Hasashi said again, cracking his knuckles at the thought of it, I was already gonna kill that blonde kid with that stupid look on his face. I might as well get something out of it.
Well, that's one less thing to worry about,
Gato thought to himself as he sat back in his chair, satisfied at the moment. He might not be able to get a shot at the 2 Leaf Jonin that had ruined things for him. Kakashi and Asuma already had significant bounties on their heads, and adding more money to it at this point wouldn't inspire anyone else to go out of their way to hunt for them. But the kids were still more than weak enough to pick off, and these exams were the perfect opportunity for that. And he was petty enough to more or less put out a hint on them to the tune of 3 million ahead. His pride was worth that pittance any day after what they had started.
And those Ginny that work for my new business partner better get the job done as well against those brats with the Uchiha kid on the team,
Gato thought as the stone Ginny got up and left his presence.
But from the work I've had done over the last few months, I have to say that the Hidden Sound Shinobi certainly know how to get the jobs I need done. He certainly seemed receptive enough to take my mission though when I said I needed his Ginny team to put down that Uchiha's team. I wonder why.
There were video screens of various sizes set up all over the place, flashing through the tournament competitors and the odds of either team winning their particular bout in the first round. Further odds would be set up between fights after the first round ended, so the entire tournament was a major gambling event, and the bookies came from far and wide to make their own bones off of those looking to bet on the Ginny in person. The multiple dignitaries, elite shinobi, nobles, and high-profile visitors there for the event had more dispensable income than they would find back in their own towns and villages. Well, most of them should have at least.
Alright, time to make a fortune.
A fair-skinned blonde woman with a quite sizable bust and long blonde hair tied into 2 loose ponytails going down her back walked through the streets of the host village for the exams. She had on pink lipstick, a gray sleeveless kimono looking blouse with a dark blue obi keeping it tied close together quite low to show her cleavage off, dark blue pants, black open-toed heeled sandals, a necklace with a beautiful green jewel on it, and an open green robe with the kanji for gamble on the back.
The Uchiha advancing is a sure thing, so I'll put a safety bid on him. I'll put a good amount up on all the Leaf teams to make it out of round 1. For the kicker, the Sand team to walk off the whole thing.
She seemed rather excited at the thought of the bet she planned on making. Following behind her was a woman with shoulder-length black hair and dark eyes. She wore a long black kimono with a white obi and sandals similar to the blonde lady, and had a worried look on her face as a small pig wearing a pearl collar and a red jacket trailed along with her.
Lady Tsunade, what could you possibly be gambling with? Didn't we just have to run from the land of tea because you got us into debt again? I paid that off in the end, Shizune,
Tsunade said, waving off the dark-haired woman's concerns.
And we're about to make back what we lost before right here during this tournament. It's a sure thing. Who could possibly judge odds in a competition of shinobi better than someone like me?
She said in a boasting manner. Shizune simply followed behind with a deadpan look on her face.
Maybe someone that has enough luck to back up their amazing judging skills for one.
She let out a sigh and looked down at the pig walking with her.
We're going to be on the run again for debt after this, aren't we, Tauntaun?
And knowing in the affirmative was a response from the small animal.
Why does she like doing something like this? She's so bad at it.
She was so absorbed with fretting over her master splurging up their already rather questionable funds that she'd managed to bump into a smaller figure that had been walking her way.
Ow! Damn it! Shikamaru, this still doesn't count as you being right. Oh, I'm sorry,
Shizune said as she looked down and saw a young blonde child sitting on the ground with a fallen massive stuffed toad and a multitude of other stuffed animals on the paved street. As she looked at him, she noticed his headband and blinked at it being a leaf one. Moments earlier with Team 10, Shikamaru shook his head as he and Ino followed along behind Naruto. They weren't rightly sure where they were headed in the festival, as they had gotten separated from Asuma earlier for what he called bonding with his comrades. Said comrade that came to fetch him for said bonding was Kurenai though, so none of them were holding their breath on seeing Asuma again for at least several hours, leaving them to their own devices. Said devices involved Naruto dragging him into every winnable game that there was, or at least it seemed that way. He would either lose and curse repeatedly before trying again until he won, or he would win and move along to the next one. Needless to say, by this point he was toting around a lot of prizes. Stuffed toys, candy and other treats, porcelain masks like the kind that Anbu wear, straw hats and other things.
Do you think you've won enough stuff, Naruto?
Shikamaru said amused as Naruto tried to navigate his way down the street, his vision hampered by the mountainous multitude of his spoils of war. Both he and Ino were wearing their weather-blocking cloaks, while Naruto was back wearing his winter clothes, his normal sleeveless orange windbreaker with a padded long-sleeve blue shirt to cover his arms, as well as a pair of thick orange pants.
You weren't saying that when you wound up getting some of the stuff I won,
Naruto said, turning his head for a moment to glare at Shikamaru.
You were too lazy to win that thing you wanted, so I had to do it for you. How are they, by the way?
Shikamaru didn't vocally answer Naruto's question. He simply gave a thumbs up and held up a tiny black package and opened his mouth to show a mouthful of small gravel-looking candies that were fizzing audibly, loud enough to be clearly heard even in the midst of the crowd.
That's what I thought,
Naruto said, satisfied with Shikamaru's lack of response. Or maybe he just felt like letting his candy answer for him. Lazy bastard.
I'm sure you thought this was funny or cute or something,
Ino said as she walked with her teammates, carrying something that Naruto had given her very quickly after winning it. He had won her a pig-shaped wallet, and had immediately handed it over to her with a huge grin on his face. And here she was, wondering why he had been trying so hard to guess one winner right on that weird rat race game. Now she knew. Naruto shrugged as he went back to his job of trying to navigate through the throng with only the use of his repeated chakra poses. Who needed eyes? Not him.
Funny? No. I did think it was cute though. Ino Buta-chan,
he replied cheekily. Ino just started staring a hole in the back of Naruto's head at the nickname that had just been given.
Just so we're clear, I will stab you. You know that, right? I have no problems with that, especially since I know you'll heal by tomorrow.
She then decided to bring something else up.
Why don't you just seal all that stuff inside of a scroll or something anyway?
I left all my scrolls in the room with our stuff, Naruto explained, and it's not like I came out here expecting to win so much useless crap. He then noticed quite a few kids running around, laughing and actually taking notice of how many toys he had with him. What the hell? He had to get rid of most of the stuff anyway. And with that thought in mind, he started handing out some of his winnings to the kids that he had passed. Guess I'll share in my good fortune, he said jokingly as he did so. While Ino and Shikamaru figured it to be just a good gesture from a good-natured guy, it was kind of something else too. Something similar had happened for him back during a Chunin Exam festival that had been held in the Leaf years ago. A person had been giving out prizes that he had won, probably to impress a girlfriend or something, and had actually given something to a little Naruto, his frog wallet, Gamachan. Even when the man had actually spotted Naruto, he had not taken the smile off his face. nor had he retracted his gift, much like how a lot of other adults would have. Here you go, kid. Have a good time and cheer up, would you? You'd probably feel a lot better if you smiled instead of frowning so much. The man had been a leaf shinobi, and while Naruto didn't remember seeing him again after that, he took the advice to heart and kept the wallet, even now. That man was part of the reason he wanted to be a ninja in the first place. Maybe he could be some kid's random hero one day, which was also the reason he was handing out prizes. Maybe he'd wind up giving a gift to some random down-his-luck kid, much like he himself had been. If he did, then the child would definitely appreciate the gesture. He most certainly did. After giving away a dozen toys to the rather energetic kids, getting more than his share of approving looks from the people around them, Team 10 continued on their way.
That was a really nice thing you did, Naruto,
Shikamaru said. He wished he could have said that he'd done the same thing, but that would have involved winning the toys in the first place and the effort of doing that and then failing dispersing presents. Too much work for him.
It's not a big deal,
Naruto said bashfully as he continued forward down the street.
I don't need all this stuff anyway. What would I possibly do with all of it? I do want to keep the gigantic frog though. That's my trophy.
Ino smiled at the amicable atmosphere they were in. It was very calming, especially considering they would be fighting in tooth and nail death matches the next day.
I think that's a toad, Goty-kun.
Really? Well, maybe he'd been hit in the head too many times to notice the difference when he'd been fighting Jiraiya's summons.
There's a difference?
Naruto said questioningly as he looked back at Ino. While doing so, he bumped into someone in front of him and fell backwards onto the ground, spilling his festival prizes all over the street.
I told you that was too much stuff,
Shikamaru commented before emptying more of his pack of candy into his mouth. But in Naruto's opinion, there was nothing wrong with overachieving, and the sooner Shikamaru realized that, the better.
Ow! Damn it! Shikamaru, this still doesn't count as you being right,
Naruto said from his place on the ground.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Naruto looked up at a pretty dark-haired lady that had an apologetic look on her face, and a pet pig nearby. Okay, he could roll with that. It wasn't the weirdest thing he'd seen by a long shot.
It's alright,
Naruto said, not really bothered at all from his place on the ground as he adjusted his goggles on his forehead.
Hey, do you want a stuffed animal or something? Take your pick.
He then added something as an afterthought with a stern look.
Not the giant frog though. That one's mine. Giant toad, Goldie. Fine, toad, Inobuta-chan.
Naruto said as a correction before a snowball hit him right in the back of the head.
You know I'm gonna get you back for that, right?
He, however, did not see Ino stick her tongue out at him and pull her eyelid down as a rebuttal. As Naruto picked himself up off the ground and shook the remnants of the snowball out of his hair, the lady he had bumped into was busy collecting up his fallen stuff.
I'm sorry again. I was just preoccupied with something else. My name is Shizune, and this is Tauntaun,
she said, referencing the small pig that oinked happily at being introduced.
Nice to meet you, lady,
Naruto said as he picked up the rest of his things and took what Shizune had collected from the ground back into his possession.
I'm Uzumaki Naruto, and these are my teammates, Shikamaru and Ino.
Both teammates waved at Shizune.
And we're gonna win the whole damn tournament tomorrow and get promoted. You can do it!
A mustached street vendor on the side of the road yelled encouragingly with a strange accent.
Thanks, random guy,
Naruto shouted back with a grin on his face. It looked like he had an underground fan base in the land of iron. He wondered if anyone would make a sign and hold it up during the competition to get his attention. That'd be cool. So you're the long shot team. Team 10, and Shizune's attention found its way directed towards a rather well-endowed blonde woman walking towards him with her hands on her hips. I was talking to myself for about 3 minutes before I realized you weren't behind me, Shizune, and here I find you held up by one of the Fighting Leaf teams, the long shots to boot. Shizune had the humility to look sheepish at being left behind by her master.
Lady Tsunade. Oh, well, I bumped into this young man and knocked him and his things down. I just stopped for a second to help him. Tsunade, huh?
Naruto thought to himself, finding her name really familiar.
Why do I think I'm supposed to know that name? I don't think she's dangerous. At least I don't think she's dangerous to me.
Ino decided to attempt to placate the rather confident and powerful looking woman. She looked like a kunoichi.
She was just helping us out for a bit, but what did you mean when you called us the long shot team?
Tsunade raised an eyebrow on Ino and decided to answer her question. Well, even though you were apparently highly touted after your graduation from the academy, and you're Yamanaka, your teammate wasn't so highly looked upon. But he's a Nara, and that's just the way they are, even when they're outstanding. Every one of them I've met anyway. Her eyes then drifted to Naruto, but then there's a talk about your third teammate. Naruto perked up as he anticipated Tsunade to begin talking about him. She knew about him. What did she know? Apparently, it was what everyone else knew that shaped their thoughts about him. There was some great news. They say he failed his graduation exam 3 times before passing in some cop-out fashion later. Tsunade started in a blunt manner before continuing. With just 6 months under his belt, it has to be pure luck that he managed to get this far, even with that nasty business in the land of waves that people talked about. But there's no luck here, and unfortunately for you and your Nara teammate, sweetie, I don't really see you making it further than advancing out of the first round. You two would be so beaten up by the end of it, even if you did win, there'd be no way you could win the next round. She sounded rather confident in that pick, and Naruto of course took offense to this.
You say that like I'm not even gonna fight in the first round.
Tsunade turned her brown eyes to Naruto and gave him a once-over glance.
I'm not saying you won't fight, I'm just saying that you probably won't matter too much in the end.
Having worked with Naruto for around 6 months and gotten an opportunity to get to know him quite personally, Ino was the first to verbally jump to Naruto's offense.
How could you say that if you haven't even seen him fight before? That information is all old. No one that knows anything could possibly tell you what Naruto can do. Who do you think you are saying something like that, lady?
Hearing that Ino had a little fire in her put a smirk on Tsunade's face. It was so cute that the little rookie Genin girl had a backbone. A rather sturdy one at that, too.
I think I'm pretty much one of the most qualified people in the world to say so. You really haven't heard of my name before? I guess people don't talk about me and the Sunny much anymore after what my bastard teammate did.
Putting Tsunade's name together with some of the things she learned in the academy and some of the things she said, most of the fact that Tsunade was the measuring stick by which every kunoichi in the world was compared to, got Ino's blue eyes to widen when she realized who they were talking to.
You're?
Shikamaru shook his head and inadvertently cut Ino off.
I don't really care one way or the other about who you are, but you aren't gonna just talk down to our friend like that and expect us to sit here and smile about it. It's okay, guys,
Naruto said, putting on a brave face by grinning as he set things down on the ground once more.
She's just the kind of person that wants me to give up. I've dealt with things like this before my whole life, remember? Even you guys said stuff like that to me before all the time.
While it was true, Ino didn't particularly want to be reminded about that. It was funny back when everyone thought that he was talentless, but he had long since dispelled that way of thinking. Now if everyone else would just realize it too.
That still shouldn't matter. She doesn't even know you. She'll know me after we win this tournament and get promoted. And then she'll know me when I make it all the way to Hokage,
Naruto said brightly and full of confidence. Tsunade was taken aback momentarily by Naruto's spirited declaration and his appearance.
Naruki? No, he's not. He's just some stupid kid. So you want to be Hokage?
That explains everything then.
Wake up and face reality, brat. All that would create for you would be a life full of sacrifice that would kill you in the end.
She turned away from Team 10 and began walking away.
Only a fool with his head in the clouds would want to be a Hokage. There's no reason to go that far, Lady Tsunade.
Shizune thought rather bitterly as she could see Naruto physically shaking to hold himself back from doing anything rash. Even Ino moved to him and put a hand on his shoulder.
He's just a kid. There's no reason for him to not have a dream. Well, I for one don't really see anything wrong with a person having their head in the clouds,
Shikamaru said calmly, getting Tsunade to stop walking away once she heard how easygoing he sounded, even after how she had intentionally tried to chop Naruto down.
I mean, clouds are cool. Have you ever stopped and looked at one? They just calm you down and mellow you out. They make you feel, I don't know, good.
He tried to explain, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly as he didn't think he was wording it right.
I guess I suck at this whole speech thing, but my point is kind of simple. Having your head in the clouds makes sure you have something to look forward to, even when everything sucks. Otherwise, life would just make you all bitter and crabby.
He smirked to himself.
Kinda like you, I'd imagine.
Tsunade narrowed her eyes at Shikamaru.
Why, you little... Besides, someone of this team must have some kind of ambition,
Shikamaru said, gesturing his head towards Naruto.
We've got a system worked out between us. I'm the pessimistic realist that lets us know when we're in over our heads, keeps our feet grounded, and thinks of a way out no matter how troublesome it is. Ino's the bossy one that makes us do anything and keeps our heads on straight. She's the happy medium here. Naruto's the metal of the team. The one that thinks we can always come out on top and never lets us quit or say we can't. He's the dreamer, our grit. Without him, we wouldn't have any edge behind us at all. So he might be a bit of a fool. Who cares? That's Uzumaki Naruto. A hard-headed, stubborn as an ox,
Ino said, following up without even being prompted to or without missing a beat.
Brash, loud-mouthed, bright-eyed, grinning cherub face, optimistic, tenacious son of a bitch. And that's why he's more or less the soul of the team,
Shikamaru said with a careless shrug.
But fortunately not the brain,
Ino said with a firm nod, proud of her reasoning on Naruto's character.
If he was, then he'd run us off a cliff like a pack of lemmings. As a matter of fact, he actually has before. But that's our Goldie though.
Naruto had been hit with so many heartfelt, yet backhanded compliments over the last several seconds, he didn't know whether to feel flattered or to be pissed off, so he just settled for a combination of both.
Wow, you guys, that was great. I just want to hug you both and stab you at the same time. I really appreciate it. Oh, also, for the record, I hate you both so much right now.
He turned his attention to Tsunade though.
But we'll see who's really a fool once we win the whole tournament. If you don't think we can, then sit back and watch.
A sharp tongue lashing didn't break the kid down or make him lose his cool, probably because his teammates had his back. And now he seemed more determined than ever to go out and prove something. That damn grin of his made her think of Naruto though. She couldn't bear looking at it any longer. I'll see you tomorrow when your opponent wipes the floor with your face, Tsunade said as she turned and started walking away. Naruto gathered up his things and let out a scoff before walking off on his own way with Ino and Shikamaru.
Whatever. I'll be sure to look for you in the crowd after I kick some major ass, you old hag. What was that?
Tsunade snapped angrily as she turned around abruptly, ready to teach the little runt some manners. Samurai be damned today. Once she did so, however, a small slug plushie immediately bounced off her forehead and landed in her hands as she deftly caught it. She noticed that Shizune also had a little stuffed mallard duck in her grasp, probably from Naruto's stash of prizes. Naruto didn't turn around as he held onto all his stuff and kept walking.
For some reason, I feel like it suits you.
he said as an excuse for giving it to her.
Uzumaki Naruto, future Hokage, and Team 10 of the village hidden in the leaves. All future Chunin Exam champions and soon be promoted Chunin. Don't forget that, alright?
Eventually, Team 10 disappeared within the crowd of people, still enjoying the festival despite the perennial overcast sitting over the skies of the mountaintop host village in the Land of Iron. Tsunade looked in the direction they disappeared, even when it went long past the point of seeing them anymore, before looking at the slug plushie in her hand and tossing it up and down a few times.
What a noisy little punk,
she said absently, though she didn't instantly dispose of the little trinket. She got a hold of it as she headed back on her way to where she was planning to go before their little run-in.
Come on, Shizune, we've still got places to go and things to do today. Right away, Lady Tsunade,
Shizune said, taking a few steps before sparing one more glance behind her.
What a strange boy,
she commented, moving to catch up to Tsunade as Tauntaun let out an agreeing oink. The next day, Chunin Exam's final round location. The next day, the Jonin Sensei of all the competing Genin led their teams to the predetermined locale for the tournament. It was a rather mammoth building with enough seating to hold 20,000 people max, and a very high ceiling. Others unfortunate enough to not find a way to procure a spot, either due to not being a sensei or not being important enough to garner a ticket on demand, found themselves out of luck once the place filled up, as there was no wiggle room for stragglers begging for a standing room only spot. Needless to say, scalpers that had been able to get tickets made a killing off of negligent average citizens that wished to see the show in person. Those unable to get inside the arena were not totally out of luck though. For a normal fee, they are allowed to watch the event on a series of large screens in the middle of the village. Likewise, a signal was sent out from the highest point of the village to the hidden sand, leaf, stone, cloud, and mist villages, so that the citizens of those villages could view the tournament in one place as well. For example, in the Leaf, a large screen was set up in the Coliseum that would have hosted the final round had the Leaf hosted the exams that year, and it was very similar to that in the other villages as well. Tickets were sold due to it being a live event, and a copy of the event was meant to be made for posterity's sake to be kept in the Leaf Archive Library. The battle arena itself was set up in a rather diverse manner. It was massive, a pit-like setup surrounded by high walls on all sides to keep the spectators from getting too close to the action. In the circular center of the arena, there was a rather tranquil Zen garden looking setup, a series of aesthetic high rocks set up to look like meditation surfaces, well spread out sand on the ground, and a stream running all through the center of the arena with a slight bend to it, 30 feet in width across, and a tough stone bridge sitting over it. From there, on one dominant side of the stream, there were rows of evergreen trees and shrubbery, a forest-looking portion. Though it wasn't too tough to see through all the plant life, there were quite a number of uses for that portion of the field. On the other side of the field, it was rockier, very uneven, and much rougher than the other part of the field, almost like the beginning of a mountain range. In both opposite portions of the field, there was one small pond each. If one were to view the field from directly above, it would look akin to a yin and yang, one side barren and lifeless, the other filled with natural life. The only thing keeping it from being a completely traditional looking yin and yang was a circular center that made up the garden, meant to be the neutral starting zone for fights to begin. This was where the teams were all gathered to wait for the event to begin.
Yesterday, during the festival, it was so romantic.
Sakura more or less gushed to Ino.
Sasuke-kun and I got to see so much of everything they had to offer. All the food, the shops, everything.
Ino rolled her eyes.
It doesn't count as a date,
she said as if it were obvious.
You're talking like Choji wasn't there too.
Sakura stopped her wonderful thoughts of yesterday with Sasuke once she realized that Choji had in fact been there as well. As a matter of fact, every place they went had been a place that Choji had wanted to go. Sasuke just followed him. And not that Sakura knew it, but the onyx-haired Uchiha had a twitch in his eye most of the day because he wished that Sakura would stop talking to him.
That shouldn't matter, right?
She said rather desperately. Ino let out a chuckle as she shook her head.
That's like saying I went out on a date with Goldie yesterday. Only Shikamaru was there tagging along. It doesn't count for a head. Too bad. But apparently Sasuke-kun knows what he wants and it doesn't seem to be you. Take that back!
Sakura said, pumping her fist with punches, rather angry.
It's not that. I just need to show Sasuke-kun that I'm more than just a pretty face and brains.
She ignored the and forehead remark from Ino to keep speaking, albeit with a tick mark on her head now.
That's why this is perfect. If I can help us get promoted, then that'll prove it. Especially if I can walk all over you in the process. You better hope you get to show off enough before we fight,
Ino said with a confident air.
Because then we'll see who walks all over who. If you haven't secured a promotion by then, you won't be getting one over me.
Sakura merely smirked at her not-so-subtle challenge before thinking of something else.
Say, Goldie is Naruto, right?
She ventured to guess, getting a nod from Ino as they both looked over at Naruto, who was looking pretty odd at the look of the arena and at the people filling in.
You know, a second ago when you were talking about him and what makes a date, you sounded like you could deal with dating him.
Ino's eyes widened momentarily before narrowing perceptively.
Don't go there, Sakura.
Sakura, on the other hand, found a separate chink in Ino's armor to pick at instead of bashing her head against the brick wall that was declaring that Sasuke would be hers to Ino's face.
What? I didn't say anything. And to be honest, once you get past the goofy part, he's got good points. Not Sasuke-kun's good points, though. Naruto and Sasuke are two totally different people.
Ino insisted, trying to end the trail of the conversation.
What makes Naruto cool aren't the same things that make Sasuke-kun cool. It's totally not fair to compare them.
Sakura stared at Ino for a second before sighing and running a hand through her pink locks.
I guess you're right, but if you're saying that Naruto is cool, then sorry, I just don't see it.
You will, Ino said as if it were already assured.
I'm pretty sure of that.
Meanwhile, elsewhere, Naruto was trying to get his nerves back down. He was fine until he saw the people that started entering the stands. That put a little shell shock into his heart, if only for a moment.
So, that rematch you were crying about 6 months ago?
He turned around to see Tenten standing there with a smile on her face as she spun a kunai lazily on her finger.
I think we'll have to wait one more round for it. Oh, and your team have to win your first fight too, by the way.
Hearing about his possible rematch made Naruto's ears burn.
I'm not the same guy I was back then. You better make sure you drag Lee and that angry jerk Neji through the first round, kicking and screaming. You'll see. I'm looking forward to it, Naruto-chan, Tenten said, walking away towards her team and waving over his shoulder. I hope you last longer than 5 minutes this time.
Naruto growled at her successful attempt to chide him and his failure to think of a response suitable for the situation, when the voice of his teammate Shikamaru snapped him out of it.
I really hope you aren't dumb enough to pick a fight with a woman, Naruto,
said the young Naraganin who stood behind Naruto with his hands sunken into his pockets.
That's just nothing but trouble. I'm warning you. Don't worry about me,
Naruto said, turning toward Shikamaru as his eyes caught another team over in the distance.
Let's worry about them right now,
he said, gesturing towards the stone team that seemed to be ignoring them to the extent that it was clear that it was a blatant mind game attempt. We've got this one, right?
Meh, depends.
On what?
On whether it's a team battle or a series of random one-on-ones,
Shikamaru said.
If we win the toss, we're going for the team battle. I don't really see a matchup in our bracket where one-on-ones would really work out for us. At least, not yet. Give me some more time to think if I'm still conscious or alive after round 1, okay?
Naruto nodded, figuring there wasn't much strategizing he'd do on people that they didn't know anything about. At that moment, a trio of shinobi walked out into the field from the entrance tunnel at the edge. One was a bald, dark-skinned cloud ninja wearing a white cloth headband, sunglasses, and the normal cloud ninja uniform. Another was a male leaf shinobi with brown hair that reached his neck and a sin bone in his mouth like a toothpick, wearing his headband in a bandana style on the top of his head, and the normal leaf shinobi outfit. The last one out was a man wearing a turban with a sand symbol on it. Over a brown body outfit, he had a white sterile-looking cloth set over his shoulders.
Alright,
the leaf ninja said as he walked up to the massive Genin. Fall into line, it's time to begin. And on command, each of the Genin got together with their teams and stood in a straight line in front of the 3 older shinobi. I am Shiranui Genma, the cloud ninja is Jay, the sand ninja is Seka. Jay and myself will be your proctors and referees for matches. Seka is a proctor and a fight doctor. There will be no fighting outside of scheduled matches. Understood? Jay spoke up next. I will now give you the rules of the tournament that you should have already received and taken to heart. This is a tournament-style combat exam meant to be carried out over the course of today and tomorrow. Before each round, the competing teams will toss a coin. The winner of the toss will get the chance to pick whether the matches will be contested under team elimination rules or one-on-one matches. For the team elimination battles, all members of both competing teams will be on the battlefield at once and will fight until all 3 members of one team are unable to fight any longer. If a member of a team is deemed unable to continue, then they will be immediately evacuated from the field. No attacking an opponent already deemed eliminated, and any attempts by a team member to get back into the battle will be strictly forbidden. Genma spoke again. One-on-one matches will be between 2 representatives from their respective teams. It's not to be known who will fight who until both move to the center of the field. Also, no assistance from teammates allowed or else the fight will end in disqualification of both the fighting competitor that the interference came from and the competitor that interfered on their behalf. Again, these series will continue until all 3 members of one team are defeated. After one person wins a fight, then and only then can they choose to switch out with a partner or remain in to continue fighting. You have 2 minutes to select which during a conference session between teams. There are no sanctioned pauses or any substitutions whatsoever allowed mid-match. Seka cleared his throat and addressed the Genin. You will obey our commands. If a proctor moves to call a competitor out of the bout, then that's that. Our word is final, and we retain the right to stop any fight that we find it necessary to do so to keep the safety of the competitors intact. He looked around at all the teams and nodded, having said what he needed to say. Good luck to all of you, and make your villages proud with your performances. This is your show, Genma said as his voice seemingly projected all over the arena. Look at these people. Everything that's happened here is centered around you. You're the ones that everyone here came to see today. So make these people proud and show them that you were given this platform for a reason. As he said that, the field stands broke into applause and cheering. Jay smiled at some of the more bashful Guinea, not knowing how to receive the attention before his face turned businesslike once more. Now, we will show you the tournament setup in case you've forgotten. On day 1, bracket 1 consists of Match 1, Rock Lee, Hyuga Neji, and Tintin versus Samui, Kadoi, and Amoy. Match 2, Nara Shikamaru, Uzumaki Naruto, and Yamanaka Ino versus Hasashi, Misato, and Jun. Match 7 will consist of the winner of Match 1 versus the winner of Match 2, and the winner heads to the semi-finals. Bracket number 2, Match 3, Fu, Hoyuki, and Dorubo versus Aburame Shino, Inuzuka Kiba, and Hyuga Hinata. Match 4 will consist of Uchiha Sasuke, Akimichi Choji, and Haruno Sakura versus Kinuta Dosu, Abumi Zaku, and Tsuchi Kin. In Match 8, the winner of Match 3 will face the winner of Match 4, and the winner of that heads to the semi-finals. In Bracket 3, Gaara of the Sand, Tamari, and Kankuro versus Oboro, Mubui, and Kagari. In Match 6, Yakushi Kabuto, Tsurugi Misumi, and Akaro Yoroi versus Hojo Arata, Obata Momoko, and Gekido Jin. Match 9, the winner of Match 5 versus the winner of Match 6. The winner advances to the final round. And on day 2, we will have the semi-finals. Match 10 will consist of the winner of Match 7 versus the winner of Match 8, who will be the winner of Bracket 1 versus the winner of Bracket 2, and the winner heads to the final round. The winner of Match 9 will advance to the final round. The winner of Bracket 3 will receive a buyout to the semi-finals directly to the final round. And the finals. In Match 11, the winner of Match 10 versus the winner of Match 9. Shinobi fans, are you ready? Then let's get ready to rumble!
Damn it.
Shikamaru said to himself under his breath.
We've really got the block from hell on this stupid thing. Even if we get to the finals, whoever we have to fight then is going to be way fresher than we are. We'll already have to fight once that day, and they'll have all the rest of the day and tomorrow until the last fight to rest up.
Life ain't fair, kid, Jay said as he managed to hear Shikamaru's little griping. It's how you deal with it that matters today. Now will everyone other than the team scheduled for the first fight exit the tunnel to the observation balcony. We need Rock Lee, Hyuga Neji, and Tintin the Leaf to come forward to face Samui, Kadoi, and Amoy the Cloud. An almost unnoticeable twitch came to Neji's eye, and a slight tightening of his fist as he and his team did as instructed along with Team Samui. Genmei held up a coin to show both teams that it was fair and that he would be flipping it. Team Samui, choose, heads or tails? Heads, Amoy said as he popped the sucker into his mouth.
Well, what if we lose this coin toss? Then we'll lose the tournament. Stuff like this carries over, you know?
Shut up, Amoy, Kadoi said, holding her hand over her face in exasperation.
Now really isn't the time for your overanalyzing bullshit, okay? Just be ready to fight.
Genma shrugged and flipped the coin high into the air as everyone on the field watched it. After a moment, it landed on the sandy ground of the Zen garden and he moved to observe it. Tails. He ignored Omo's cry of damn it and looked at Team Guy. Okay, you guys, which one do you want? We, Neji, and Tintin looked at each other before Neji spoke up.
Proctor, we'll take the series of one-on-one matches for the first round.
Jay nodded and turned to Team Samui. You heard him. Both teams move away and pick your first rep. The rest of you are to stay up in the balcony until the fight is over, at which time you will then be allowed to speak with your teammate on the field if he or she wins the battle. Understanding the rules, Samui nodded as she and her team went off to select who will be fighting first against one of Team Guy.
Cool,
she said simply and evenly.
Not for long, I would imagine,
Neji replied, intentionally loud enough for her and everyone to hear. Though none of Team Samui turned back around or even said anything to show they cared. Karui did start grinding her teeth at the pretty boy Hyuga kid with a chip on his shoulder at that point though. They did know that he was more or less doing the same at the moment. End of chapter 23.